Hello, team. This is Dr. Miranda, and it's a great joy to get to share a few moments with you. There's a lot to talk about. We are almost at the end of the course, so hang in there. You've been fantastic. It's been a lot of growth, a lot of maturing. One of the things that I've seen a lot happening in this course is there's a lot of stretching, right? Uh, in the content, a lot of stretching in terms of mental stretching is expanding your horizon, helping you to see the particular issues when it comes to dealing with business in a foreign environment, as well as stretching, um, I would say, the writing, the mechanics. All of these things are very important, all of very important components when it comes to the success leveraging of this course. So there's a lot of things that we discuss on this particular workshop. Okay? And one of them is very important is the how to integrate a Christian worldview into the practice of international business. I've actually done a video on that for this class. Um, and if you subscribe to this channel, the link is there, the video is there, just click on it, and it gives you a complete breakdown into what is a Christian worldview like and the practice of international business. Now, the other one that we're going to look at is evaluating global negotiation strategies effectiveness. Now, at this point in time in your career, unless you have already done this type of work. This is something that's completely new. I'm just, thinking out loud. At this level of studies, not many students have had that particular experience on having to negotiate uh, 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 for your business in a international business setting. There's several ways of negotiation. Some of them is from country to country. For example, negotiation between the United States of America, Canada, and Mexico. Um, Coming together for the maintenance of NAFTA, the North American Treaty Association, right? A free treaty association. So the thing is, NAFTA came together after much negotiation, sitting down, understanding the needs of each country, of each industry. There was a lot of negotiation that took place, a lot of different strategies that could be used, right? So negotiation and utilizing effective negotiation strategies in business, particularly on an international business setting, is very important. There are some things that we can apply in negotiation overseas, right? Now you're saying, well, I've never done that before. But let me ask you this. Have you ever negotiated for a popsicle when you were in grade school? Have you ever tried to negotiate with your parents so you can, get to that party? Have you ever negotiated with your parents, for a little bit more money, please? Okay. And so you're saying, those are minor things in life. No, but they serve as the foundation stone. Serves as the foundation for any strategic trading or negotiation overseas. It's just some very basic things that we need to learn. We need to understand was, number one, do we understand our business? You see? Do we understand what our business is? Do we understand our services? Do we understand our company holistically and what it does? Because if we are not experts in our own company, experts in our own product, experts on what we do, then you're going to have a hard time negotiating overseas. Okay? What strategy are you going to use to overcome your ignorance of your own company? The other thing is, do you understand your industry holistically? Do you really understand in a comprehensive manner what your industry is? Let's say your industry is aviation, right? Let's say you're doing wood paneling for, corporate or private citizens who buy airplanes. Okay, Do you understand the industry? Do you understand the needs of the industry, where the industry is at? Do you understand the prices that are involved in the industry? Do you understand the level of service? Do you understand the other companies that make up your particular market? Do you understand the demands of that industry, the demands of those particular services? Okay, so you have to have a comprehensive industry understanding of your industry. The other is, do you understand the market that you're going into? Do you understand the country that you are expanding into? Do you understand their language? Do you understand the culture? Do you understand the particular cultural nuances when it comes to effective trading overseas, right? So, efficient strategies that can be developed, and there's many of them that you can use. But however, it all starts with a comprehensive knowledge of your company, your product, your services, your industry, and your host country. Okay, you have to know them inside out, because if you don't, you're going to get out there and you're going to lose a lot of money. Okay, you don't want to do that. Look, I just on culture alone. Okay, American companies has lost millions and millions and millions of dollars for the lack of understanding of culture. Whenever they're doing business overseas, there are certain nuances, there are certain practices. They're very different, right? From business to business, from individuals, how individuals respond to authority, how they respond to hierarchy. Okay, so you must have a deep understanding, not only of that, but understanding of yourself. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are you bringing to that table? When you're ready to wheel and deal, when you're ready to broker, when you're ready to work on that deal, do you really understand the components? Do you understand your overall goal? Do you understand where you want to go? Do you understand what your limits are and what limits you don't have? Right? Do you understand how far you can push and how far you have to step back? Okay. Um, Now, these things are complicated, and they're complicated in the domestic market here in the US. Imagine overseas, you can take that to power of 10. It makes it very complex. Okay, that's why when you are going into an area you're not very knowledgeable of, if somebody else knows more than you, then they have the humility of either hiring them on as a consultant or telling your boss, say, listen, I don't feel good about this. I don't have the particular knowledge. This individual here in our company, they have the knowledge. They may not have the experience, but they have the knowledge. Let's put our team together. Let's put our heads together. Let's see how we can, better strategize so we can go out there and make some good money and make some good business, establish some solid relationships. Okay, but you need to understand all of these components when you are doing business overseas, because if you don't, you're going to fall flat on your face and your company is going to suffer. Okay, now let's talk about the ramifications of treaties, tariffs, and trade agreements on global business ventures. Right, it's from one topic to another. Woo! It's a big switcheroo, so to speak, but hey, it is what it is, right? So I want you to think about this. We have a global international structure. Remember from the first module, workshop 1. Okay, we studied about the main global economic structure, right? We talked about the IMF, we talked about the UN, we talked about the World Bank, right? We talked about the World Trade Organization. All those things come together, right? But we are mainly dealing with a combination today of globalism. Okay, globalism, what is it? Right? Well, it's Big Brother. They're taking over the world, and then they're going to give us the mark of the beast, and then we're all going to die. No, I don't think so. Okay, I've believe me, I've been in conspiracy theories before, and by the mercies of God, I got out of it, and there are some interesting things that but let's talk about the World Trade Organization. What is the World Trade Organization, right? But before that, let's talk about globalism. Globalism is simply the coming together of all the world markets, the coming together of all of the world's economies, We have better technology now that we have better transport technology, better communication, better computer systems. We have emerging markets. Okay, we have traditional markets. We have the easing of tariffs, the easing of quotas. We have, in most cases, a free access to foreign markets for our goods and services, as well as our country has free, gives free access at times to other, certain goods and certain services as well. Okay. Now, what we must understand is that to have business, all of these companies trading amongst each other and all together, we need to have some sort of organization which serves as arbiter between countries, because it doesn't matter how UN-minded we are. It doesn't matter how high-minded we are about global trade. Yes, everyone must have global trade. We must trade liberally, and we must trade in such a way that becomes free global trade for all. I'm a globalist in terms of, yes, I believe in globalism. I believe it's a trend, and I believe there's no going back from that. Okay, the train has left the building, Elvis. Elvis has left the building. He's not going back in. The train has left the station. The airplane is flying. Okay, this is a globalized world, and it's getting even more coming together, even more rapid than what we thought. Okay, now the issue is not free trade. The issue is fair trade, right? Are we going to allow our market to suffer, certain industries to suffer, only because we want to do free trade with everyone? Okay, this is where the World Trade Organization comes in and serves as an arbiter, because these are always issues that come up. Later on, we're going to have a discussion about subsidies. Okay, but there's always issues that will come up between big countries, little countries, or the little country, emerging countries between each other, or companies. There's always issues, and I think it's a great step up that instead of having a war that kills thousands of people, destroys infrastructure, depresses the world economy, and just destroy individual lives, I think it's a step up in the right direction that we have an organization that comes in and listens to the disputes and makes a decision, either or against. Sometimes it's not the right decision. Sometimes it's not the best decision. But it is way better than clubbing each other on over the head, over resources, and over business, right? And you say, well, but that's a loss of democracy. Not necessarily. It's not. Okay? Is our country, United States of America, has decided that we're going to join the rest of the world, and we are going to make, trading between countries, because we must have trade between countries. It's in our best interest to have trade with other countries and have other countries have trade with us, because as long as we are trading, we have economic activity. As long as we are trading, we're not at war with one another. I've always thought, oh my Jesus, my precious, precious Lord, and I'm not taking the Lord's name in vain at all. So please don't misunderstand me. I'm like, I would think, dear Lord, because I talk to the Lord. I'm a believer. I said, dear Lord, I'm concerned about war with China. But the reality is the American economy is so integrated along with the Chinese. There's a mutual dependency between the two countries when it comes to economy, that it'll be mutual suicide, economic suicide, to go to war with one another, particularly nuclear war. Okay, but fair trade, you see, fair trade, it is the very heart of the argument today. Okay, and we have something called tariffs, right? Tariffs are certain fees which are imposed on products coming from other countries. Sometimes it's a percentage. Say, okay, you're going to enter our market, we're going to slap a fee in that. Okay, and that's going to serve as a way to kind of equalize things a little bit, and also to protect our market. There's also another thing called quotas. All right, quotas are very interesting. Say, okay, you want to export dinosaurs, Okay, let's say dinosaurs existed. You want to export dinosaurs. So here's what's going to happen. You can only export 100 dinosaurs a year. Okay? If you're doing business with China, we can let you export 200. Okay? Or, quotas of products coming in. Okay? Well, we don't want too many dinosaurs running around, and we want to protect our own markets. So, guess what? This year, the quota is 5. You can only allow 5 dinosaurs to come in the United States of America. Again, using something comical to illustrate a reality. Okay, some say, "Well, you should never have tariffs." That is not right. That is a protectionist ideology. You are closing the country's borders to business overseas, and we should never have tariffs and quotas. I believe that it is best to have free trade. Free trade, right? But I also believe that it is the government's responsibility to protect the economic life of the nation. So, if the government and the business leaders consulting together, they decide and say, listen, we need to protect our steel industry. Because if we don't have a protected steel industry, we're going to have people out of jobs. We're going to have depressed economy. And ladies and gentlemen, just for the sake of free trade, just for the sake of enriching another nation, I don't think so. That's not smart. What we need is a smart combination between free trade and protectionist policies for certain things. I've always believed that extremism in either direction is not the smart way to go. Okay? You always need to be somewhere in the middle. And I believe that enacting a policy that acknowledges global trade and encourages global trade, free global trade, fair global trade, but also with a mixture of quotas and tariffs is the right approach. Okay? You're saying you are an extremist. No, I'm just a middle of the road kind of guy. Right? Now I may be wrong. And I could be wrong. That's why I'm a human being. I can make mistakes. Right? But the World Trade Organization is a good organization. It's not a perfect organization, but it helps to regulate and police, okay, global trade between nations. I think it's a beautiful thing, okay? We have a good infrastructure. It's not perfect. It's getting better. Some say, well, but don't you know? And hear me, and I am not mocking anyone because guess what? My first degree was theology. And one of my specialties is the cults, and the cults, and the other one is eschatology, end times events. But some folks have said, well, I mean, truly, honestly, well, all of this is going to be used by the Antichrist one day, and I agree. I agree. But the thing is, we don't know when that's going to happen. So, meanwhile, what we try to do is to use the tools that we have to make our lives better, the lives of our fellow citizens better, and also to help other nations to emerge out of um, economic issues, right? Because when all the nations of the world feel that they're getting a fair deal through free trade, okay, that we're not just for the big guys, and that their interests are also being promoted. Their interest is also taking into accountability. I saw our presidents, and again, I'm not getting political, but I think it's important to note this, right? I saw his speech at the United Nations, and I thought there was a line in there that I really thought it was a great line, and it's a great juxtaposition with global trade and international business. One is, he says, America will always come first, just as well as you have the responsibility to make your country a priority, right? Every world leader has the responsibility to make sure that their country is always first. And I thought to myself at that moment, I said, that's the beauty right there of global business, right? Because when every country makes themselves a priority, right, they're not going to bend to the will of another country who may come in, and do like product dumping like China has done to Brazil. China has destroyed the Brazilian economy through the dumping of cheap products in there. It has totally destroyed that economy. Right? Say, well, you hate the Chinese. No, I don't hate the Chinese. I don't hate anybody. The only one I hate is the devil. Okay? Um, at any rate. So the thing is this, okay, is that when every country is looking out for their own economic benefit, it's a good thing because they're not going to bend to another. They're not to compromise the welfare, the economic welfare of their nation, of their system, just because they believe in free trade and global trade. Okay? And what that means is that every world leader then will be wise in using free trade because you want free trade and global trade. Look, the figures do not lie. Nations that open up their borders for global trade are doing well, are doing better than the ones who don't engage with the world through global trade. Okay? And you say, but what about the loss of jobs? There will always be a loss of jobs, either through internal attrition, either to the invention of new technology, new processes, new new efficiencies in the market, new markets, new trends, customer demands. All these things will make changes in the market, and there are people who unfortunately will lose their job. Okay? And you say, but that's heartless. No, it's not heartless. I know what it is not to have a job. I know what it is. Listen, I remember training my substitute. I worked for a bank. I remember training my substitute, the person who would take my job. I remember training that person. Okay, they were going to go to Costa Rica. My job was going to Costa Rica. But you know what I did? I said, I'm going to do the best job that I can in training this person. I am going to go above and beyond in training this person, and I'm going to just trust God. I am going to be professional in my approach. I'm going to do the right thing. I'm not going to I'm not going to annoy my supervisors. This is not their fault, right? It's just the way business is done today. I just have to accept the situation and I have to move on. Guess what? God bless me. I worked so hard. I was so dedicated that they opened up a position for me. Now, the thing is this: people will lose jobs. It's a reality in the global environment that we're in. It's a reality. Okay, I mean, people even lose jobs to internal competition, to domestic competition. So we can't blame free trade and global trade. But tariffs are important, quotas are important, and free access to markets are important. So the balance act, my dear friends, is always going to be how much quotas to impose, right? Which tariffs to enact, and which tariffs and quotas to eliminate. That's always the balance there. And when we have a system that, we have professionals who understand how the system works and apply those, then I think that, we'll have some better days ahead when it comes to global business. Now, we're going to have a discussion, and it has to do whether should we go for the consumer or go for the producer. Should the government listen to the producer or the consumer? Right? It's your job to figure out which. And tell then what's your side of the issue, right? I've seen some really great debates. I've taught this course many times, and I've seen some really good. Well, the government should only listen to the producers because these are the manufacturers, and they're putting, they're bearing all the risks, and they should have all the perks, they should have all the tax breaks, and don't worry about the consumer. Others says, no, whoa, what are you talking about? The government should listen to the consumer. What in the world is going to happen if we just allow the producers to run wild? What happens if we have no regulations? What happens if we have no rules? What's going on? By the way, I wrote a beautiful curriculum for study.com dealing with government regulations, and I did that during an election year, and guess what? They still have it up. right? Because I did a good job at it, and I wasn't political. I talked about it, right, on both sides of the aisle, but put a nice little package together, you know. And there's some concerns. Are we going to trust industry to really look out after the consumer? Right? There's some guys. I mean, there's some industries there, just really great people, very highly ethical people. But we got some industries. Let me tell you something. I don't trust them with a 10-inch pole. You know, I like that Doctor Who song, right? Anyways, not Doctor Who. Doctor, not Doctor Who. Doctor, I forget his name. Doctor Seuss. The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. All right. So here it is. Okay, is one of the things that I believe, this is just my personal point of view, is the government needs to listen to both sides. It needs to listen to the producers and it needs to listen to the consumers. It needs to back up the producers. It needs to provide tax cuts. It needs to provide, good incentives. It needs to partner in some cases where it needs partnering. For example, right now, listen, the emerging technology is big data. Emerging technology is space systems, space tourism, and right now there's some beautiful, amazing cooperation between private companies and the U.S. government who are developing these technologies. And look, Elon Musk already announced we are at the cusp of changing the transportation system forever by the introduction of rocket technology in airplanes. Which, by the way, there's already a hybrid that the Brits came up with that you can actually retrofit in an existing jetliner to this type of technology, is a rocket technology. And think about it, from here to London in 30 minutes. Ooh, just cut down a lot of unneedful time sleeping on an aluminum tube and being uncomfortable. I used to love flying, but now not so much. Okay, so there has to be also, the government needs to look after the interest of the consumer, because without the consumer you cannot have producers. Someone has to consume, someone has to buy, someone has to resell what's being produced. Okay, and so I think it's a balancing approach that the government needs to take. Okay, and when you have a balanced approach, then there's less opportunities for things going wrong. I don't mean Big Brother. I don't mean a heavy-handed government. I'm talking about a government that's efficient, that looks after the welfare of the producers and the consumers, both of them. Because when both are happy, the economy wins, right? When we have too much happy producers and unhappy consumers, then it doesn't work. When we have happy consumers but unhappy producers, it doesn't work, right? But when we have both of them happy, watch out. It'll be a great economy. Boeing versus Airbus is a very interesting case, right? I remember these two companies, right? They were fighting. Now, I love those companies, okay? I mean, I have traveled in both. I remember as a kid, traveling from here to Brazil and other places on Boeing 747, that classic jetliner. And just a beautiful, just a lovely piece of technology, style. It's just a beautiful, mature technology. And then you have the Airbus. Again, a marvel of technology. It really gave Boeing a run for its money. You talking about fly-by-wire introduction before Boeing ever did a lot of automation into those systems. There's been some trouble, of course, but just a very beautiful. The Europeans, boy, they know style. They know integration. They understand what that business is like. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful product. Okay. Now, so I love both companies. Of course, because I'm in America, I have a little bit more affinity. I have an affinity towards Boeing, right? It's an American company. The history of Boeing, going back World War II, designing those Fortress, Super Fortress B-17s. Um, those beautiful airplanes, those marvelous tools that rain down fire over the Nazi and the Axis powers, you know. And coming from a Hebrew background, I am a Christian by religion, but a Hebrew background, I don't have any particular love at all for the Nazi regime. So I was very glad that they were extirpated from the, annihilated from the face of the planet. And I'm very happy that Boeing airplanes helped do it, right? So I have a lot of respect for Boeing, and I use a lot of data from Boeing for my own dissertation. So you say, well, you're not objective. Well, in a way, I'm not, but I am acknowledging the good work that the Europeans did. So was a huge war, tremendous trade war still going on, right? And where the Europeans say, hey, by the way, Boeing, you are not dealing straight with us. You are receiving tax cuts from your government, and because of those tax cuts, those are considered um, subsidiaries. And you're receiving money from the government, and that's creating an unfair competitive advantage, right? So, so they have a point, right? The Americans are saying, we're saying, hey, just a moment here, Francois. Listen to me. Well, you guys, you're getting loans from the European Union, very low interest, okay? You're getting all this free money. And you're telling me, you're complaining us about our tax cuts, and you're saying that you're the one getting money directly from your government. You're being subsidized, and because of that subsidizing, you're putting us in danger. Your government, the EU, it's creating a atmosphere of unfair competitive advantage for Airbus. Then the Airbus people are saying, hey, but just a moment, we got to pay that money back to the government, right? And so you got those two companies going at each other, right? So what did they do? The United States and the European Union decided to say, hey, we're going to be friends. We do a lot of trade together. We are strategic partners. Many of us are NATO. We have this tremendous history behind us. Let's not get into a trade war. Let's go to the World Trade Organization, and whatever they decide, we will do, because we don't want a trade war. It's ugly. It's unproductive. Nobody wins. Airbus said, yeah, we monsieur, right? And Boeing said, okay, okie dokie, we're gonna go. Well, the first time around, WTO said, well, Airbus, you are guilty of this practice. Airbus appealed, and then another decision came down the pike and said, Boeing, you are guilty as charged, and now back to the drawing board. Subsidies, right? It's at the very heart of this discussion. Go to the WTO website. It's beautiful. Go to YouTube. There's some amazing videos. I put one of them yesterday for your viewing pleasure. Okay? But subsidies by governments, are they providing unfair competitive advantage? I say yes. If the government gives you money, gives a company money, the company then that is the competitor for that company is not receiving the same help from the government. Okay, that means it's putting that company that's not receiving that from the government in an unfair competitive situation where the other company has a competitive advantage. Right? Very clear. Some say, well, subsidies should never happen. Shouldn't be part of the equation. We should never have this type of economic activity. Don't worry, I'm not going crazy. I just have so much fun. This is just passionate about the subject. And anyways, I believe that it is healthy to have subsidy from the government. Okay, the government can be in a very strategic position, specifically when it comes to emerging technologies, in which the industry doesn't have much access either to the capital or to the technical expertise or the technology advancement that company needs. Okay, so the thing is, I think it's important for the government to partner with some companies, particularly those on emerging technologies, particularly those who are involved in strategic industries of the nation, like production, energy, right, defense, okay, infrastructure. These are important things, right? And they're very strategic to the survival of the nation. Okay, but for example, the U.S. government is spending a lot of money right now on space technology with private companies. I think that's a good thing because you think about it, the U.S. government is going to receive a lot of money back from these companies. Believe me, it is going to happen. Right? I remember Citigroup when they, jumped in bed with the government, and I don't mean that in a bad way. The only way for the company to survive would have been to receive TARP monies, right? Folks, let me tell you something. The company paid back almost 3 times as much money that they received. The taxpayer got that, but our glorified, wonderful media doesn't say that. Everyone looks then at the bank and says, well, look at a bunch of fat cats and what they did. They even stole that money, and now we don't have that money anymore. What that reality is that the company took that investment and they gave almost a threefold return to the American people. Okay? So we've got to be very careful about some of the statements that we hear from the media. Got to be very careful, do our own research, right? So subsidies are a good thing. But when a company becomes so dependent on the subsidy that without that subsidy, it will be no more business, then it's time for the government to say, it's not going to work, Jack. Sorry, we're not going to keep putting money on you because, we're wasting our taxpayers' money on this. And I'm sorry, Uncle Sam is not in the business, of doing this. We are good stewards of the monies of the people, right? And the taxpayers, they are the CEO, they are the money, they are the one footing this bill, and we're not going to just put it down a vortex out in space like a vacuum cleaner of all the money. Okay. Anyways, so some really great discussions this week. Very excited about it. Okay. At any rate, if you have any questions, any concerns, please reach out to me. You got my contact information. Use the university contact information, please. And also, I've let you my phone number, and you can text me at any time, and I will get back to you. Thank you, and have a beautiful, wonderful week.